think that a person who's growing is a happy person, a person who's trying to figure things out, a person who's working on themselves, they're a happy person. We spoke about this, the Lashon of Ashrei. That when we speak about Ashrei, Ashrei is related to the word to do with stepping forward and growing. So this Ashrei it can translate, the person who's growing is found in Hashem's home, and the person who's growing, he is the Tru'ah. And if we live for ourselves, there's a lesser quality of life to our existence. But when we find something to live for the community, for the family, for the world, for our country, then there's a greater quality of life expressed. And more than that, as we know and as we've spoken about, when a person's struggling, but they struggle and they realize there's something much bigger than them they're living for, the struggle becomes a lot easier. So when a person has fixated in their mind, we see it on the war movies, when they rouse themselves up, they waken themselves up. Come on, we're fighting for our freedom. What was it, the Scottish fellow? What was his name? Braveheart. He managed to get everyone through his words, through fighting for something bigger than themselves. When we live for something bigger than ourselves, life is very different. Life is very, very different. And even when we struggle, it becomes easier to live through that struggle. Ashrei. Now at the end of Ashrei, Tilas Hashem Yida Bepiva Kobas Hashem Kachalanu Vanachnu Nevarachim Atav Yadalam Hallelujah. So may our mouth declare the praise of Hashem, and may all flesh bless Hashem forever and ever. We'll bless Hashem from this time and forever. So here we have a declaration which is similar to the declaration that we start the Amidah with. Hashem Sasam Shiftach Ufiha Giti Lasecha. The way we start Amidah. And this is a very interesting declaration. We say it at the end of Ashrei. We say it at the end. We say this in the Amidah after the Shema. Why? Because you can't hope for your mouth to praise Hashem if you did not work on yourself to give your mouth opportunity to praise Hashem. So we come to learn something very deep here, and that is, on one level of our existence, we are a bunch of habits. We are a bunch of habits. So for example, if somebody gets triggered by something, and they get triggered once or twice, 3 or 4 times, eventually it becomes a habit. And that habit will start to trigger off automatically. And every single area of our lives we have developed through learned habits triggers. When we speak about the mouth praising Hashem, when we speak about in Ashrei, as we read later in the Tehillim, as we read later in the Selichos, that the guf belongs to Hashem and the neshama belongs to Hashem, and we are our awareness, as we've spoken about, our work is to create for us healthy, good, brilliant habits. That's our job. We are a bunch of habits, and we can constantly be involved in recreating good, healthy habits. So say for example, somebody has a bad feeling towards something, and they repeat the exercise of doing whatever they're doing, and constantly a bad feeling comes up. Eventually you won't have to think twice, and the bad feeling is brought up. Nachon? Now, if you learn to do some work on yourself, you learn to realize that, you know what, I can change that feeling. I can come in and I can take ownership over what I am feeling. I can take ownership. So, yes, this is the feeling that I'm feeling right now. However, I choose that it's not going to last. I choose and I realize that it will change. And what happens is, say, for example, you prepare yourself and you can come to a place where you can enter the situation with a different mindset. You become conscious of what's going on. Eventually, that which was a habit, now you generate an awareness over it, and you could start to train and change one habit for another habit. So I'm sure in your lives you've had situations where you've had certain habits and you've had to develop new habits over that certain habit. Could be a person smoking and they stop smoking. It could be an exercise routine. It could be if the person does martial arts and simple things like you're holding your guard up and your elbows slightly up and you get hit in the ribs. You've got a habit of change that habit. You've got habits of the midot. And through an exertion of awareness upon what you're doing, and through doing the proper meditation, hisbodedus that we've spoken about, and as well, we've done role play. Role play is good fun. When you role play a certain behavior and then you re-role play, you role play again, and you act differently, that changes your physiology, that changes your neurocircuit. So we start off, Ashrei Yoshrei Veisech, a person who's growing, who's changing, who's developing. That's a person who could eventually come to be living a life. Tilas Hashem Yidab Piva Kobas Hashem Kochel Olam Va'ed. That declaration starts to occur if we grow and we focus. So, for example, we spoke about, as it says by Rabbi Shimshon Hirsch, that in Chorev, Lehitpalel is reflexive. I'm davening to myself, Lehitpalel. So the mystics explain, our capacity to develop who and what we are comes through understanding the map of our reality. And when we understand that when we're davening, we can talk, shine down the words from the tefillah into our nefesh. I can sweet talk, I can talk and bring up feelings, and I can talk to those feelings. So for example, I can use my imagination, my dimyon, when I say Baruch Ata Hashem, Beinei Yerushalayim. I can imagine myself being involved in building Yerushalayim. So I'm living in Eretz Yisrael, and I'm working in Eretz Yisrael. But what do you think that's doing? That's called Beinei Yerushalayim. When you come and you say Shema Koleinu, you hear our voice, Hashem, and we thank Hashem for hearing our voice. Again, we've been speaking about how Tefillah is a map, that we can come and we can use the words of Tefillah to connect to our nefesh, and we can ask ourselves, tell me, Shema Koleinu, when have I been listening to myself? When have I been listening to my spouse, my friends, my children? So the Shema Koleinu can be a declaration, wake up, become a conscious listener. And as we know, we've spoken about the avodah of Baal Shem Tov listening, become a conscious listener, Shema Koleinu. So when we're going through this process, it can come to a point where when somebody comes and approaches me, I naturally come into, through the imagination, through my dimyonot, seeing myself, listening compassionately, listening with love. I get switched on straight away. When I say Shema Koleinu and I stop for a moment and I imagine myself listening the way I ultimately want to listen. When I speak to you, how do you want to be listening? And when you speak to me, how do you want me to be listening? What does it mean to be a healthy listener? What does it look like to really take somebody's words, be with somebody as they talk? So we've spoken about how the Pilzno Arba used to say, he had a declaration he made when he was listening to somebody, and he sometimes would say it, but he thought it. If he didn't say it, please talk so I can hear you, that I can understand you. Please talk that I could know you better. I don't mean to hurt you, and I don't want to hurt you. I want to be present. I may get tired, and I may move in and out of a conscious listening, but I want to be present as you speak, to hear, help you unload, that you can hear yourself and know yourself. Shema Kolenu was the time when he would meditate on that for a moment. He would thank Hashem for listening the way Hashem listens to us. And then he would take upon himself, this is what I see healthy listening looks like. So when we are Ashrei, we missed out everything in the middle, otherwise we'll be here a very long time. But we can come, we can come to a place through proper Avodah where my expression, the expression of my being, is expressing Hashem's praise. This is something very, very important, hopefully to remember, to think about, to play with the idea, to play with it when we're davening, when we're living, when we're working. Remember these words. Let it be Hashem Svatayim Zivtachu Fi Agitzatecha. Let it be that our being is a being that generates the most unbelievable light and the wealth of expression in the reality that we live from moment to moment, from day to day, from month to month. Let our years be years that matter because we've taken upon ourselves to become something more, that our whole being becomes a vehicle of praise for the Rabban Shalom. And what happens after we finish Ashrei? We move into a Kaddish. And again, we're not going to go through every line of Kaddish, but maybe something just to awaken us, something just to remember, if we can, to whatever capacity we can do that. And I tell you, for me, when we say these words, Yiskadal v'yiskada Shemei Rabba, and Yehei Shemei Rabba Mevach La'alam U'malmei Almaya, when we say these words, there's such depth and profundity to these words. It's absolutely amazing. There's a tremendous amount of Kabbalistic interpretation. I would like to pick one theme relating to Kaddish. We picked a theme relating to Ashrei, and we just looked at the opening and the closing. Opening of Ashrei, which means to step forward, to grow, to change. Ashrei as in growth. The happy person is a person who's growing. And as we sculpture and redefine ourselves, our body becomes that way. That's where we are going to become. That's what we're going to become through living a healthy life of growth. We go into the Kaddish. The Kaddish is very interesting. The Kaddish Tefillah is very old. It's a very, very old Tefillah, well over 1,000 years old. And the Kaddish prayer is a Tefillah that separates tefillot. So within the tefillot, Mekubalim explain that it's a carrier. It takes up, when I've davened a certain chunk of davening, I say a Kaddish, and it takes up that tefillah. And it makes a separation between one part of tefillah to another part of tefillah. And we know that people who are nifta, there's Kaddish said by people who are nifta. So various minhagim of why that came around. It wasn't originally like that, but why that came around. But we're going to pick on one element which I think is so important and we forget. And the truth is that we have to be living a life where we're living this theme that we're going to share. And really to impress upon our children, impress upon the future generations that this ideal of what Kaddish is coming to express, when we say this Kaddish, it should change who we are. It should remind us, it should anchor us and connect us to the greatness of man. So we say, Yiskadal v'yiskadal Shemei Rabba and Yehei Shemei Rabba, and we're speaking about, may Hashem's name be great, be exalted. Yehei Shemei Rabba, may it be blessed, may it be great. So, I remember the question of a Rebbe, he asked the question, when we say Kaddish, when a person is saying Kaddish for somebody who's lost someone, and they say, Yiskadal v'yiskadash, and we say Yehei Shmei Rabba, what's the internal message that we should be resonating to as this is said? And he said something which I don't think I'll ever forget. He says that the reason why we say Yehei Shmei Rabba is because when a person is nifta, he was speaking about when somebody is nifta, and we say Kaddish for that person who's nifta, when somebody has gone from this world And Be'ezras Hashem, this is for Elul Nishmas for Norman Adler. I didn't get his full Hebrew name, but the Rabbi Shalom knows, who was Nifta 2 days ago, went to the Shiva this morning. He was a friend. So when we say Yehei Shmei Rabbah, we are coming to recognize that when one person is missing from this world, there's a lesser revelation of light. There's a lesser revelation of light. When we say Yehei Shmei Rabbah, may your name be great. We're saying, may your name be great. Why? Because someone's missing from this world, and there's a lesser expression of light in this world. It's very deep. It's very, very deep. Because we come to realize, and especially by the Baal Shem Tov, we come to realize something, that Hashem shines through us. Hashem shines through us. The Sfarim explain, Sfarim HaKadoshim explain that Shlomo HaMelech, he turns to the Rabbi Shalom when building the Beis HaMikdash, and he says, Rabbi Shalom, how is it that the infinite could dwell in the finite? It's a good question in Malachim. How is it the infinite could dwell in the finite? And we're told that Hashem Yisbarach doesn't dwell in the finite, he dwells through the finite. The infinite can dwell through the finite. So when the Bet HaMikdash was in full force, when the Beis HaMikdash was filled with a hustle and a bustle and a busyness, that was a conduit, that was a kli that Hashem Yisbarach's light could shine through. And when there was more activity, when there was no more noise, and there was more hustle and bustle, the greater output of life was being expressed. The God light was being expressed. Through the finite, the infinite was shining. And guess what? When the Avodah ceased to exist, when the Avodah in the Beis HaMikdash lessened and lessened, there was less and less of God's light shining through. Because there was less activity. And this gives rise, as the Baal Shem Tov and others say, that we have to realize that we are the Beis HaMikdash now. Until we get the Beis HaMikdash back, we are the Beis HaMikdash. And we should always remember from moment to moment that Hashem's light shines through us, through our activities. So the more we're empowered, the more we are alive, the more we're thriving, the greater God light shines through us. So if each individual takes upon themselves to live for greatness, there will be a greater intensity of Hashem's healing, wonderful, wondrous, warm light in this world. And when a person is working to a lesser stature, there's a lesser revelation of light. And it's true, we have ups and downs. You know, it's very dangerous if a person on a heart rate monitor flatlines. Life isn't flatlined, up and down, sound waves, up and down. That's how we live life, and it's okay. It's how we live life, and it's okay. Yet we have to remember the chashivas of Adam. The Gemara says in Sanhedrin that a person should say that the world was created for me. Chayav Adam, that the world, ha'olam nivu rak ela bishvili, that the world was created for me. Now, one can come to think this seems like Balgaiva. What do you mean, the world was created for me? There's many different interpretations. One of the interpretations is there's this balancing act that the world was created for me, is that I should look that the scales, the tipping of schuyot and averot rests on me. That one more action gives life and light to the world. There's another interpretation as well, that I should realize how important what I do, the impact is the Nefesh HaChaim says, in the fourth parak, the impact of who I am, the impact of what I have to offer is intense, it's immense. The Yisayda Avodah of Slonim, in the fourth parak, he writes he brings in the name of the Arizal, that no 2 days are the same. No 2 days are the same, and he goes and says how every day is very meyuchad, every day is special, it's different. And he comes to say that no 2 human beings are the same. No 2 human beings will ever be the same. From the beginning of time till the end of time. Each person that was created for a certain purpose, and nobody from the beginning till the end of time, the spanning of our whole world and universal history, no one could do what you are here to do. No one. So if a person doesn't work to metaken, person's not going to metaken what they needed to metaken. Person isn't, they're not going to metaken what they needed to metaken. They're not going to fix up what they needed to fix up. We have to realize that we are important. We have to view ourselves, and we call this Bein Adam La'atzmai. We have to view ourselves that we are important as an individual, that everything we do, the way we live, it matters, and it leaves an impact, and it creates a difference. There's a beautiful base Arab, the Rabbi of Kalin, in his Seder Hayoim, he writes something which is, I think we should mamish like hang this up. How are you? It's found in the Seder Hayoim of the Beis Aaron, and he writes, Tzarich li yos yakal ma'od be'einei atzmo. A person should be very precious in their own eyes. We should be in our own eyes very, very precious. And we should believe ba'atzmai, lahamin ba'atzmai. We should believe in ourselves that everything that we do fixes very greatly. Everything that we do as an individual, we are as individuals truly profound, unbelievably profound. And the avodah bein adam la'atzmai is very important. The avodah to build ourselves, to recognize our self-worth. And we're not talking about self-worth from the perspective of self-esteem, because really we've discussed before, in the avodah of self-awareness, in the avodah of das, self-esteem usually expresses itself as some sort of competition to an external marking system. So, it could be, for example, competition at school with the markings on the schooling chart, that I got 100%. It could be competition with somebody else. And it could even be competition with oneself, which is sometimes very sad. That people, in an unhealthy way, they will say, I didn't do good enough, I could have done better. Or whatever it may look like, but it could be a self-competition, which is an unhealthy competition, self-esteem. This idea of self-esteem, the way that the positive psychology comes to classically express it, it's usually to do with some sort of competition with self. In Yiddishkeit, when we speak about this idea of self-esteem, we're talking about essence, that I am happy with my essence. It's not about my gifts that I've been bestowed with. It's not about competition with how many marks I can get. And we find that so many people live a life where they are kinder to a stranger on the street than they are compassionate to themselves. And this is very hurtful, very damaging. So, people, it's interesting with this idea of living with essence. People get very confused because they don't know who self is. They don't know who they are. They come and they're in a situation where they are living a life and they think they are their thoughts. They think that they are their feelings. They think that they are their midos. character traits, whatever that means. And their capacity to love themselves is determined by the skills and the talents that they have. And this can be very dangerous, because if a person, if they don't add up to in their self-belief to what they should look like, it's very destructive. So people end up being very nasty to themselves. There's a lack of kindness and compassion. So when we're speaking about the love of self, when we speak about the chashivas of Adam, this beautiful mamash, it's unbelievable that we should be rich in our eyes. We should believe in who and what we are and what we do. We're speaking from a das perspective. We're speaking from a perspective of true essence. That in a place of das, I'm perfect. I'm beautiful. I have a neshama, and I work beautifully. I function beautifully. And when we do the avodah of das, becoming more aware and knowing who we are in essence, and we know who we are not, and we can create that space, you fall into unconditional love. And as we've said by the Kotzka, v'ahavta l'recha kamocha is love the outside fellow like you love yourself, but v'ahavta l'recha, love the different eyes within you, love the different parts of you like you love your das, like you love yourself in essence. And the more we practice and the more we speak about who we are and who we are not, it becomes more and more apparent that we can live a life of unconditional love to self and to others. And really, unconditional love should start with self. There shouldn't be any reason when we start to gravitate to the truth of self-awareness and das, that I have feelings, I have thoughts. That when we can realize who all of that is, we can come to a place where we can say, look, I'm good, everything's good, mamash, everything is really good. And when a thought comes up, you're not good enough because of, okay, I know you're there. I don't need to buy into it, I can let it go. When a feeling comes up of resentment, okay, I know you're there. I can ignore it if I want to. And as I advance in my states of consciousness, as I come to awaken more and more, the natural default setting is that of self-love and compassion. And you become compassionate on yourself. You come to say to yourself and have a relationship with yourself like you would see a child in pain on the street. Is everything okay? Are you okay? You'll try to comfort them. So the more you become a baldas, you start to comfort yourself. So Yehei Shmei Rabbah, we mean it. When we say Yehei Shmei Rabbah, the healthier we are, the stronger we are, the greater output of God light exists in the world. And when one person is missing, there's a lesser light intensity. And Hashem's light is healing. Hashem's light is wondrous. Hashem's light is wonderful. The more we live as good, healthy, wholesome, integrated human beings, what are we offering to the world? We're offering the gift of self. And everybody should know that the world deserves their gifts. I have to walk around, I have to recognize, I have to work on myself because the world deserves what I have to offer. Not from a place of gaiva, from a place of being humble. That's what it means to be a humble human being, is that I'm not living for myself, I'm living to give. How can I better the world that I live in? When I ask myself, the food that I'm eating now, how is that bettering the world outside of me? The food I'm eating. How am I being of service with the food that I eat? And this is really where it should come down to. Is the food I place in my mouth of service to this world? Is it of service to my family? Is it of service to my friends? Because if we're eating junk food, for example, that's not really of service to the world outside of us. It's an instant gratification, which is not necessarily going to help us be the best eyes I can be. So we have to ask ourselves, with the daily livings that we live, am I being of service to this world? Am I giving? Yehei Shmei Rabbah. Yes, may your light, may your name be great, because it's lessened. In the Shulchan Aruch, it's an amazing halacha in Reish Lamed Aleph. Aruch Chaim Reish Lamed Aleph, it speaks about how all the areas of our lives should involve L'Shem Shamayim. It should be L'Shem Shamayim. And there's a place in our reality called the place of Rishus. And even in the place of Rishus, obviously, should be L'Shem Shamayim. What does that mean? That we have the Tarek mitzvahs. And we spoke about this in the women's shir yesterday. We have Tarek mitzvahs. What are the Tarek mitzvahs? 613 mitzvot. And they are a system that we live by. They're a system that we live by. And I know Hashem wants me to live with the system of Torah, 613 mitzvot. I remember by my Rebbe, Zichron Livracha, Dayan Lopian, Gershon Lopian. So there was once a Yid who came up to him. And this Yid was discussing where they should move to. Should they move to Golders Green, or should they stay in Edgware? They were discussing, where should we move to? So I was sitting there, and the person said to Dayan Lopian, I know Hashem wants me to move to Golders Green. And Dayan Lopian, his eyes widened, and he looked. He says, what? He says, I know that Hashem wants me to live in Golders Green. And Dayan Lopian says, that's Mamash Avodah Zarah, the idol worship. He says, who's the idol? He says, you. What? How do you know what Hashem wants? How do you know what Hashem wants? If you say to me, I know Hashem wants me to put on tefillin, okay, Hashem wants me to put on tefillin. If Hashem wants me to learn Torah, okay, Hashem wants me to learn Torah. How do you know if Hashem wants you to live in Golders Green? That's not one of the 613 mitzvot. 614. What about Nefuah? One of the 613 mitzvot. You can say Hashem knows that's what I want. If it's outside of the 613 mitzvot, it's called Reshut. And it's in the world of Reshut, it's in this, I don't know how to label it, it's this grey area. It's this, so to speak, area in life where it's not the 613 mitzvot. There's this grey area who we're going to marry. There's this grey area where we want to live. So we could say, you have to be careful, because here in Eretz Yisrael, I know that Hashem wants me to live in Eretz Yisrael, and I know there's a mitzvah that Hashem wants us to live in Yerushalayim. It's not one of the 613 mitzvot, but it's an in of Kedusha. So let's say, do I live in Bet Shemesh, or do I live in Haifa? There's this area which is obviously within the Torah consciousness framework, but it's the area where, as an individual, we have to find where we fit. The hashkafa that we follow, the clothes that we wear, the friends that we have, the Beis HaMedrash that we belong to. There's this whole area of life, the profession that you choose. That's where you shine forth. That's where you, as Tehillim says in Elokim, we're like a small God. In these areas, we are unbelievably creative, and we have to be. And Yehei Shmei Rabbah, the individuality of man, yes, it's how we do Torah and mitzvahs. That obviously when a person is working on themselves and they stand there holding a shekel, a few shekel, and they are generating a simcha to give that shekel, and they're doing with love, with yira, with ahava, that's an intensity to do with the mitzvah where your individuality comes in. There's as well this arena of life where there's so much that you have to discover, for yourself. You have to decide for yourself. And it's in this area where the godless Adam shines out. It's in the area within Torah mitzvahs. How much intensity do I put into my Torah learning? So every area of life should be with a God consciousness. In this area of Rashut, there should be a L'Shem Shamayim, we're told. In this area where I have the ability to indulge myself in the deepest self-discovery, it should be L'Shem Shamayim. Yehei Shmei Rabbah, when a person is lesson in the world, when they're not here, there's a lesson light output in the world. The individuality of an Adam is mamash choshev. When we find ourselves and we choose to define ourselves and to refine ourselves and develop in who and what we are, Yehei Shmei Rabbi, call out to Rabban Shalaylam. Yehei, may your name be great. It's an invitation for us to remember my independent greatness. I have to look at myself and I have to take responsibility. The world deserves what I have to give it. I deserve it. I owe it to myself to live, to give a life of giving. Yehei Shmei Rabbah. So when we come into the Selichos and we say the Ashrei, and then when we say the Kaddish, Hashem's not attacking us here. Selichos is not about being attacked, and it's reminding us of our godless, reminding us that we can live and we should live with this aura of responsibility, this light of responsibility. And it shouldn't be something which is scary and we should live with a passion in every area of our lives to express the me, to express the true me, to work on my midot, to react to life in a real way, to be involved, Ivdu as Hashem b'simcha, and to live with certain goals and values, and to live them, to be those goals and values, to embody them. We spoke about, I think it was on Shabbos, we spoke about so many people, they have the goals that they want to be living with. And you ask them, and they give you an amazing goal. Yeah, I want to be with my mishpacha. I want to spend time with my family. I want to spend time with my friends. But then you ask them, well, tell me, does your actions add up to that belief? Oh, well, no, because I'm a workaholic and I'm at work all the time. Tell me, what's one of your goals? Oh, to exercise, to be healthy in the mind and to be healthy in the body. Well, do your actions add up to that? Well, I exercise. I exercise seriously. I exercise once a year, twice a year I exercise. So many times we can have these beliefs. They're not meant to be just up here. We're meant to live them. And it's when we live them, the true self shines forth. And we owe it to ourselves to shine forth. We feel great when we do it. And you speak to people who don't live their beliefs and values, they know it. They know it because they're not as fulfilled or happy as they could be. When a person, like a couple of weeks ago, there was a guy, and it was exactly this situation. He has this deep-rooted belief to spend more time with his family. It's very important. Yet he's at work the whole time. For the last 2 weeks now, 3 times a week, he leaves work on time instead of staying at work for another 15,000 hours. And he gets home at 7 o'clock. He works in Tel Aviv. He lives in Yerushalayim. He gets home at 7 o'clock, Mashu Kazeh. 3 times a week. He did it last week and he did it this week. He's doing it this week. He comes home to be with his family. Do you know in 2 weeks how much his life has changed? You think that this belief and this action merging together just affected him in that particular area? No, it doesn't work like that. That one action has ripple affected that he davens a more intense davening. He's happier at work. He's more content and relaxed. Why? Because there's this residual uncomfortability when we have goals and values and our actions don't match up to it. Because we're letting ourselves down. We're not letting Hashem shine out through our day-to-day living. Yehei Shmei Rabbah is a call not to be dead. It's a call that when someone dies, there's a lesser light in the world, and that's why we say a Kaddish for someone who's nifta. But maybe sometimes people should be saying Kaddish for themselves because they're living dead. So many people live a second-class life. They live a second-class life like a mouse in the galgal. You know, the mouse that are crawling and going, like this. How they live life. We deserve to live well. We deserve to thrive. That's what the Rabbeinu Shalom wants from us. As the Biala Rebbe says, live a good life, a kosher way, a Torah way. Because at the end of the day, what's inspiring to us? When we see people thriving, that looks good. When we see people thriving, that looks good. That's desirable. But guess what? We can be that person. Yehei Shmei Rabbah. Is my light output a healthy, wondrous, wonderful light output? Have I ever thought about what my beliefs are, and do my actions add up to those beliefs? Yeah, once a week I go to a martial art class, or twice a week. Do I believe that I should take my Yiddishkeit more seriously? Well, do I turn up to Minyan? Do I learn a little bit? Am I doing something? I had a guy just a couple of days ago, and he believes that he should learn. So from Yid, he believes he should learn. And Mamash, he is so makpid on his time. He's trying to get a mortgage on a house, and he's trying to feed his family. He's working from morning to night. He works for himself, and he's working from morning to night. And Tachlis is that he doesn't learn. He davens by himself and he doesn't learn. I told him to take on one thing, learn one halacha from the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. One halacha from the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. And I said, make it a priority. People say they don't have time. It's not that they don't have time, you didn't make it a priority. You have all the time in the world. It's what you fill up within your days. What activities do you fill up within your days? What is priority in my life? I said, make it a priority that after you daven, you say one halacha from the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. He's done it for, I think it's 3 days now. And he feels so much better. He's got a spring in his foot. He's got a spring in his step. Just because he's had this on his mind. I'm not learning enough. I'm not learning enough. He comes to shul, he feels guilty. I'm not learning enough. And he's just okay, I'm going to do one halacha. And he's doing his one halacha. It's changed. Let what you believe in your values and your beliefs, let it add up to action. Yehei Shmei Rabbah. The way we live our lives, that is Hashem's light in the world. Anyone have any questions? That makes sense. Does that resonate? Does that talk to you a little bit? Talk to you a lot.
When you said the world is about me, that also means me as an us.
What do you mean?
It says the world is made for me.
Ha'olam nivra rakei, it was made for me. It was made for me.
For me as in everybody?
It's according to the Ben Ish Chai, the Ben Ish Chai says me as in everybody, but as well me as in me. The world was created for me. It's my playground. What am I going to build in my playground?
It has to do with everyone. Just me doesn't work.
It's the idea that you are important, and it's the idea that you are singular, and that you are miyuchad, you're special.
I'm sure it's
Yeah.
a singularity of the one man from which many Alamim come out.
So it's speaking about the individual, speaking about me. It's an ideal that I should live with, that I know that this world is my playground. God gave me the responsibility to design this world, and through the way I live my thoughts in, the way I live my life in thought, speech and action, that's Hashem shining out in the world. Through our service, we become an inspiration for ourselves. You can't help but be inspirations for others. Be real, be healthy. And this leads on to the next Selichos. This is the next introduction to the Selichos, because as we said, we read Ashrei, we read Kaddish, then we read Lecha Hashem Atzdaka, V'lo Beishet Panim, V'lanu Beishet Panim, which we're going to go into, Shema Koleinu, and then we read the Selichos for that particular day. So what do we read? We say like this, Lecha, we'll read through it, Lecha Hashem Atzdaka, V'lanu Beishet Panim. Maybe you can read it nice and clear. Just read the English. Properly. Huh?
From the top?
Yeah.
Lecha Hashem,
Yeah.
yours, my Lord, is the righteousness, and ours is the shame. Faceless, shamefacedness. What complaint can we make? What can we say? What can we declare? What justification can we offer? Let us examine our ways and analyze and return to you. For your right hand is extended to accept penitence. Neither with kindness nor with good deeds do we come before you. As paupers and as beggars do we knock on your doors. At your doors we knock, your compassionate and gracious one. Please do not turn us away from you empty-handed. Our King, turn us not away from you empty-handed, for you are the one who hears prayer.
Thank you. So this is the first Selichos that is different than our normal Ashrei and Kaddish. And first of all, one of the messages of this Selichot is that we can always knock on Hashem's door. One of the messages of this Selichot is that Hashem doesn't move. He's at home, so to speak. And we can always knock at the door. And He's always going to be there. But what does it take for us to knock on the door? It's what it takes for us to knock on the door. We start off by saying, Lecha Hashem Atzdaka V'lanu Beishes Panim. Hashem, you are tzedakah, you are righteousness. And we stand with a shamed face, an embarrassed face. There's a very, very deep reality going on here. And that is that there's a mergence point, as we've spoken about before, from an internal world, the world of the imagination, the world inside, and then the world outside. The world outside. So what could that look like? Is that in my mind I've built a certain dimyon of something, of a situation, and the reality is it doesn't add up to that. It doesn't add up to that. So what is boshet? What's busha? Busha is that you have this moral compass, and the more sensitive your moral compass is, healthy shame, and we learn it from Adam and Chava, healthy shame, healthy busha, embarrassment, is that you've knocked yourself off from the moral compass a little bit. You've knocked yourself off, you've done something wrong, and your moral compass tells you that you've done something wrong. And we know Hashem is Baruch His Tzedakah. So I remember Rabbi Sebag, one of my Rabbonim, he said that, you know what's interesting? What are you embarrassed about? Are you embarrassed because you did an Avera? Or are you embarrassed, speaking about this, because of Hashem's tzedakah, Hashem's righteousness? Hashem is Baruch, Mistam is going to forgive you. Are you embarrassed that you did something wrong? Or are you embarrassed because you hurt Kiviyachol, the way the world works? If we want to say you hurt the Shekhinah, you cause pain to the Shekhinah. So he said, Lecha Hashem Atzdaka V'lanu Beishes Panim. Hashem is Baruch is righteous. Hashem is Baruch is a tzaddik. the way we should be living a life is that there should be a busha that we hurt the workings of the world. We should be sensitive to the realizations that we caused hurt. And what does that embarrassment do to us? It creates for us a quandary. Do I go and knock on the door or not? Do I come to realize, who is it? It's me. Oh, hello, how are you? I'm good, but I did something really bad and I want to tell you about it. I want to be honest. Hashem Yisbarach is there. Hashem Yisbarach loves us. And we should be living a life where we have a moral compass, where our moral compass can direct us to know what is correct and incorrect. That we learn halacha and we learn Torah and it means something to us and we choose it to mean something to us. It's a choice that we have to make. It's a choice if I believe it or not. You know, you can have a person who's a Chiloni Jew and they're Mechalel Shabbat. It doesn't matter to them because it's not on their radar. And then you can have a person who Shabbat is on their radar. So, for example, if a religious Jew who's always kept Shabbat broke Shabbat, there's a sensitivity that they are going to have that from a Torah perspective that a person who doesn't keep anything is not going to have. Just from the matter of fact that one chooses to keep and one doesn't choose to keep. From a psychological perspective, you can have within your reality boundaries of how you treat people, how you work with people. And it could be that you wronged somebody. And because your moral compass tells you, you feel shameful, you feel really bad. The question is, what do you do next? Now Hashem Yisbarach, Hashem Tzedakah. Hashem Yisbarach He is tzedakah, He's righteousness. The door is always there to be knocked on. The question is, what do I do? Do I knock on the door or not? And part of Selicha, and part of Selichot is coming to knock on the door. It's realizing I can knock on the door. One of the most amazing things about Selichos is that we can do it. I can come, and I can come before the Rabbi Shalom, and I can say, Rabbi Shalom, I messed up. And I want to prepare myself to come into Rosh Hashanah, and I want to be honest with you, and I want to be truthful with you. Hashem Yisbarach's tzedakah is there. Hashem Yisbarach, the door's there to be knocked on. We have to choose to knock on it. But that means we have to take responsibility for our actions. And there is an embarrassment. There is a shame. But that's okay. It's okay to feel shame if it's a healthy shame. Because it's telling us, it's talking to us. It's okay to stand in front of the Rabban Shalom shameful in a healthy manner. And we know, Be'ezras Hashem, Hashem Yisbarach is going to say that, okay, come in, let's talk. Come in and let's talk. And then as we go through Shomei Tefillah, as we go through, we end this Kiyat Shomei Tefillah. Don't turn us away empty-handed. Hashem Yisbarach, I'll come to you, Shomei Tefillah, you're hearing me. And we say in this Tefillah, be real. I can't make any excuses. Hashem Tzedakah. And then we say, what can I say? I can't say anything to you. Let me try to say something. I can't say anything to you. But Hashem, don't turn me away empty-handed. I can say that to the Rabban Shalom. I can say Kiyat Shomei Tefillah. And then we go into the Shomei Tefillah, the next part. And as well, we come and we're saying to the Rabban Shalom about my lackings, and we're talking about Hashem Yisbarach's greatness. And we come to a place, again, of asking. We come to a place of recognizing that we can ask, and that Hashem Yisbarach is great. And as we've said before, Hashem El Rachum V'Chanon Erech Apayim V'Rav Chesed V'Emet, we should realize and should understand and should experience Hashem, that Hashem Yisbarach is the same before the Chet, and Hashem is the same after the Chet. It's us that realizes the Yehei Shmei Rabbah, that we lessened our Yehei Shmei Rabbah. We lessened that through not living the life that we desirably want to be living. And we can come and say that to Rabbanu Shalom. I could stand up, and it's safe. It's safe to stand up in front of the Rabbanu Shalom and say, I messed up again. It's safe to do that. And it's healthy to do that. And that's what Hashem Yisbarach wants. And we end off by saying as well, we end off something in the avodah of das, in the avodah of what we've been speaking about. It's an amazing thing. The end of Shomei Tefillah, before the Slach Lanu Avinu Kibarov, before that, we end off by saying the neshama belongs to you, Hashem, and the guf belongs to you, Hashem. So, I'm saying, I know I messed up. I know that my neshama and my guf belongs to you. I want to reclaim my responsibility. I want to come back and be responsible again. And I want to ask for forgiveness. You're Rachum V'Chanun, you have Rachamim. And I'm taking note of that. And I want to reestablish myself with who I'm meant to be, with the reality I'm meant to be living. That I want to make sure and I want to be real with what's going on in my mind to your arena of the universe, Rabbanu Shalom, that they should meet. I shouldn't live just in my head in a negative way. I should come to be real with what's going on. So Be'ezras Hashem, maybe this week we can come to realize and think about how what I do and what I live, it matters. That we have this beautiful base Aaron that tells us that we should be precious in our own eyes. And we should remember that what we do makes a difference. And there's no one like you since the beginning of time. There's no one like you since the end of time. It's impossible. You are unique. And if you think about it, you can meditate on it, be misbeinen on it, meditate on the fact that we have this whole universal history and there's one you in the drop of the ocean of the universal history. And Hashem wants you to give what you have to give. And the world deserves what you have to give. And you deserve for yourself to give what you have to give. And don't get caught up in all the nonsense. Rise beyond it and realize that sometimes in life we don't do things according to plan. That's the way life is. That's why we have tshuva. So Be'ezras Hashem Litchazek, and may we go from strength to strength. I love you all very much. And next week, Be'ezras Hashem. Does anyone have any questions? It's okay.